Dubai International Airport. A Boeing 777 is moments away from landing, but something goes terribly wrong. The aircraft touches down, then attempts to go around, but the engines don't respond. 300 lives hang in the balance. What happened in the cockpit that day? What led to the crash? And how did everyone survive, except one hero? Air disasters. Trivandrum International Airport, August 3, 2016. A Boeing 777-300, operated by Emirates, is preparing for scheduled flight EK521 from Trivandrum, India to Dubai, United Arab Emirates. This is a regular passenger route connecting the southern Indian city of Thiruvananthapuram with one of the busiest aviation hubs in the Middle East. On board are 300 people, 282 passengers and 18 crew members. The aircraft is powered by two Rolls-Royce Trent 892 engines and, though not new, is in full working condition. It first entered service in March 2003 and has accumulated over 58,000 flight hours and 13,620 takeoff and landing cycles. The flight crew is made up of experienced professionals. The captain, a 34-year-old citizen of the United Arab Emirates, has been with Emirates since 2001. He has logged 7,457 total flight hours, 5,123 of them on the 777. The first officer, Jeremy Webb, is a 37-year-old Australian pilot who joined the airline in 2014. He has 7,957 total flight hours, with 1,292 hours on type. Both pilots are well trained and have good records. At 10:34 a.m. local time, following a 30-minute delay, air traffic control clears the aircraft for departure. Emirates Flight 521 lifts off the runway at Trivandrum and heads toward Dubai. 2 hours later, after a smooth flight, the Boeing 777-300 approaches the United Arab Emirates. The weather in Dubai is hot, 37 degrees, but not considered extreme for the region. The ATIS, Automatic Terminal Information Service, warns of possible moderate wind shear. However, it's within the aircraft's operational limits. The crew begins configuring the aircraft for landing. Flaps set to 30 degrees, approach speed at 152 knots. At 12:36 p.m. local time, the crew receives clearance to land on runway 12 Light at Dubai International Airport. The approach appears stable from the perspective of air traffic control. The aircraft descends steadily with auto-throttle and autopilot engaged in speed mode, SPD. But as the aircraft begins to flare, the captain notices the plane is floating above the runway, a phenomenon caused by thermal updrafts. These prevent the aircraft from touching down in the designated touchdown zone. A long landing alert sounds in the cockpit, indicating the aircraft has touched down far beyond the safe landing zone. According to Emirates procedures, the crew must initiate a go-around in such situations. The captain makes the decision to abort the landing. The go-around procedure begins. The captain presses the TOGA, Takeoff Go-Around button, a standard step that should increase engine thrust to maximum and initiate a climb. Flaps are set to 20 degrees. The landing gear is retracted. Air traffic control instructs the crew to climb to 4,000 feet for another approach. But then comes the critical moment that defines the fate of the flight. The aircraft had briefly touched the runway for 6 seconds during the first landing attempt. The crew didn't notice it. This momentary contact activated a logic condition in the aircraft systems. Once the plane registers as being on the ground, the TOGA function is disabled. This safety feature is designed to prevent the accidental triggering of takeoff thrust after landing, which could cause the aircraft to overshoot the runway. As a result, when the captain pressed toga, the auto throttle didn't respond. The engines remained at idle. The crew, trusting the automation, didn't verify the thrust lever positions. They didn't notice the engines weren't powering up. A GPWS warning sounds. Don't sink. The aircraft is losing altitude 18 seconds after initiating the go-around, with landing gear up and insufficient thrust. The Boeing 777 slams back onto runway 12 for it. The lower fuselage strikes the tarmac. The aircraft skids for nearly 1 kilometer before coming to a stop near taxiway Mike 13. The right engine detaches, fuel begins leaking, posing a serious fire hazard. Inside the cockpit, tension is high. The captain gives the order to evacuate. The evacuation begins immediately, but the conditions are far from ideal. Strong winds interfere with the inflatable evacuation slides. Some of them lift off the ground and become unstable. Out of 10 emergency exits, only 3 function properly. Smoke begins to enter the cabin. Some passengers ignore instructions and try to retrieve hand luggage, slowing down the evacuation process. The senior flight attendant and the captain are the last to leave the aircraft. 9 minutes and 40 seconds after the aircraft came to a stop, the center fuel tank explodes. A massive fire engulfs the fuselage. Evacuation took 6 minutes and 40 seconds, far longer than the 90-second industry standard. 21 passengers, the first officer, and 6 crew members sustained minor injuries. 4 cabin crew suffered more serious injuries. Yet all 300 people on board survived. A miracle, given the scale of the destruction. But there was one fatality. During the firefighting operation, firefighter Jassim Isa Mohammed Hassan lost his life when the fuel tank exploded. 7 more firefighters were injured. It took 16 hours to fully extinguish the blaze. The aircraft was completely destroyed, marking the first total hull loss in Emirates history. The crash prompted a major investigation led by the UAE General Civil Aviation Authority, with participation from Emirates, Boeing, Rolls-Royce, and the US NTSB. Dubai International Airport, one of the world's busiest, was closed for 5.5 hours. Over 23,000 passengers were affected by cancellations and delays. Emirates and Fly Dubai canceled dozens of flights. Full recovery of airport operations took 72 hours. Emirates paid each passenger $7,000 in compensation, $2,000 for lost baggage, and $5,000 for other losses. The final report, released in January 2020, identified a chain of causes and contributing factors. Primary cause: engine thrust remained at idle during the go-around. This was due to toga being blocked after touchdown, a system behavior the pilots were unaware of. Crew factors: insufficient monitoring of engine parameters. The crew didn't notice the thrust levers were not advancing. Misunderstanding of automation logic. The system behavior after touchdown was not clearly documented in Emirates or Boeing training materials. Lack of training. Simulator programs did not include go-around scenarios initiated from near the ground with toga locked out. Company policy. Emirates required the use of auto throttle during all phases of flight. This reduced pilot readiness for manual intervention in critical moments. External factors. Wind shear and thermal activity complicated the first landing attempt, forcing a late go-around. Evacuation issues. Some passengers ignored instructions and carried baggage. The evacuation slides failed under wind conditions that were still within certified limits, raising concerns about their compliance with safety standards. The crash of Flight 521 had far-reaching consequences for Emirates, for Boeing, and for the aviation industry as a whole. Emirates revised its pilot training programs to include manual thrust handling and low-altitude go-arounds. Boeing updated the 777's documentation, making the toga logic clearer. The company also began developing improvements to alert pilots when thrust is insufficient during go-around procedures. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, and other regulatory bodies issued recommendations to improve training, automation monitoring, and emergency slide design. The accident highlighted a growing issue in modern aviation: over-reliance on automation, a problem that had already played a role in crashes like Asiana Flight 214 in San Francisco in 2013. Flight 521 was a turning point for Emirates. The airline, once known for its spotless safety record, now had to face hard truths about systemic gaps. It also reminded the aviation world that no matter how advanced the technology, it can never replace human awareness and training. The miraculous survival of all 300 people on board stands as a testament to the courage of the crew and the bravery of emergency responders, despite the tragic loss of one of them. This is not just a story of a crash, it's a story of resilience, quick thinking, and the lessons that continue to make aviation safer today. To this day, Flight 521 remains a key case study in aviation safety. Every time a 777 lands in Dubai, it carries a part of this story, a reminder of how narrow the line can be between routine and disaster.